Good grief. Okay.
All right, so we're joined from Alexandria, Louisiana, by my friend, licensed professional counselor Kimberly Texada, mother of is it 5 or 6?
6.
Yeah, mother of 6, just all around great person, head of the nonprofit there. Really, really cool background, and kind of like me, changed careers later in life. So that's really cool that you've done that. We're in the Human Services Career Cluster. We got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson High School. We're recording this for our friends at Rosa Scott, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time for us.
No problem. No problem.
Now, before we jump into what it is you do on an everyday basis, you're from the Baton Rouge area, where you grew up in Baker, went to Baker High School, home of the Buffaloes. So take us back to your educational background.
Okay. Well, I am from a small town called Bunkie, which is right outside Alexandria. I don't know if any of you all have ever heard of that town, but I am from there. I went to high school in Baton Rouge, which is Baker, graduated from there. And then I started off at Southern University for English to get an English degree. Then I decided I didn't want to be a teacher once I started having children. My career path kind of changed. So after that, I kind of lived life for a while, and I was one of those people who went back to school later in life. So, you always have that option, go back, don't ever stop learning. So after that, I worked with Greg for a little while. We worked at Sprint together. I was one of the phone technicians that actually repaired the phones. He was one of the salesmen. That's where we met. So I did that for a while. I did that for actually about 15 years with different companies off and on. Decided I was done with retail, didn't like working at nights anymore. Went back to school, and that's when I went and got my bachelor's at Louisiana State University, Alexandria, which is just a subsect of LSU out here in Alexandria. So I got my bachelor's degree from there. I did the accelerated program, so I was actually done in about 3 years as opposed to 4.
Wow.
Went straight into grad school 4 days later. I didn't take any break. I was already, kind of up there at that time, so I didn't want to waste any more time. I went straight into grad school, and I went online at Liberty University because I was working at the time. So, but the thing about LPC programs, they're hybrid. So you do have to attend college, 10 classes, you have to do residencies. So just make sure if you do an online program, it's it's accelerated, but you do have to get some hands-on clinical experience. So I did that. So now I am working in a psychiatric field currently, and I'm still gaining my hours for my full licensure. I'm provisional right now, what's it called? PLPC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing we talked about before you came on is that counseling, at least for what I've seen, is similar to nursing. We had a nurse last week. So if there's always a need for counselors because with the growing trend in mental health services and with the growing trend of ending stigmas in certain communities with mental health, there's going to be a need for mental health professionals. But counseling, you've worked in multiple areas of counseling. We'll talk about that in a second. Just because you start in one area doesn't mean you can't kind of pivot into another area if you get burned out. So it really is a lot more flexible than some people might realize.
That's right, Greg. There's a lot of different areas in counseling. And as this world continues to go and change, mental health is needed. And there's many different areas of mental health, many. And you're right, with burnout is important with counselors. So you want to find your niche and kind of, try to work in that area if that's what you like. Again, if you feel like it's something you don't like, then you move on to another area. But that's why it's important to keep your education. You have your specializations right. You don't want to go and try to work with trauma when you're a child, child play therapist. You want to decide which area you're in and make sure you're educated in that area. That's part of your ethics. You must be competent in the area you're working in. Okay, but yeah, it's forever changing. It's forever changing, especially after COVID.
Oh, big time. And I think it's important to to let everybody know that just because you seek mental health services, it doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you're sick. It doesn't mean you're a danger to people. But we have an alumni that we've had as a guest. That's a counselor here in Jackson, and she said once a week she goes to a counselor, and she's a counselor.
That's right. I have a therapist. Therapists should have therapists. You're taking in a lot of secondhand trauma, particularly if you work in trauma and I'm a trauma counselor. You know, my particular specialty is adults with childhood trauma. So there's a thing called secondhand trauma, and you can be traumatized just listening to other people's trauma. You're hearing this over and over again, people just telling these horror stories, and you're hearing it all the time. And if you don't protect yourself or practice self-care or, you know, let those things out, then you will start to experience those things, vicarious trauma, you know. So yeah, you absolutely want to. And as far as, don't get me started about about the getting help when you need it. I'm part of the End the Stigma campaign. And what that's about is just ending the stigma on mental health. My particular focus is in the Black community and in the religious community. We have a lot of stigma on that about, oh, don't go see them people, you're crazy, or if you need medication, you're crazy. Don't believe that. A lot of people telling you that need it themselves. We're gonna leave that alone. You know, you definitely want to get the help you need. You know, sometimes it's, particularly when you're around my age, we're taught that, you know, all you need to go to church and pray. Listen, I'm a devout Christian. I believe in prayer, but I also believe that God puts people in industries to help us through certain processes. Sometimes it's a process to get through your trauma. You didn't get like that overnight, so you're not going to be, you know, removed from it overnight. And God has people out there that actually, you know, believe in him and will help you through that. Get the help you need. Get the help you need. If you were young and I mean, it's such a secret in so many of our families, you know, there's everything going on, sweeping under the rug, and just about never happened. Those things will manifest one way or another when you get to be an adult, whether it's through substance abuse, alcoholism, gambling, whatever, mistreating your own kids, it's gonna come back. So you want to get those things dealt with. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Get the help you need. We need y'all young folks. Huh? We need you to be healthy and strong so you can go out and be the people you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. And, you know, and that's a good point, because I always say, you know, people can't help. Nobody chose to have nobody chose to have the parents they have. Nobody chose to be born where they are.
That's
Nobody
right.
chose the color of their skin. Nobody chose a lot of the 99% of their health issues. I mean, occasionally you have a person that has they make themselves sick, but most of the health issues you face is not something that's your fault. But that's where people like you come into play to say, look, you dealt with this as a child. It wasn't your fault. Here's how you can move past that. You had this genetic,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've had some kids that have genetic diseases that it was, it's nothing they did that caused that, but you find ways to work past that. Not only they seek medical care, but they also have to seek mental health care, because it's a very traumatizing thing.
That's right. That's right. It's learning, you know, I practice a lot of mindfulness, learning to live in the skin you're in, be where you are in that moment. If that's your reality, okay, how do we deal with that reality? How do we best deal with that reality so that you can live a productive life? That's mindfulness. You can't change everything. Like Greg says, some things you can't change, but some things you can. And the things you can, do it. And don't let anybody talk you out of that. Get the help you need. There's no shame in it.
Now, and obviously, I want to get to a lot of questions because this is a very question intensive career. But we do have the handout you gave us about the career path for LPC and some of the organizations for counseling. So, talk a little bit about that. If somebody's interested in becoming a licensed professional counselor, no matter who they are, I mean, obviously, just like every other field, we want to get more women involved. We have some first generation Americans that'll see the later. We need some bilingual counselors, or people that can speak multiple languages. Obviously, we need some AfricanAmerican counselors. So, talk about the path that some of these colleges in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama have, and why they should consider getting into it.
Okay. When it comes to LPC, I wish it was a uniform track. That would make things so much easier, but it's not. So many different states do different things. They have different requirements, which is some of the things I sent Greg. I sent you before you print that, Greg. But it's every state, and it's telling you exactly what's required as far as licensure. Okay. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm in Louisiana. My licensure requirements are different than Mississippi. I have to be in a KCREP program, and all that's in here. You know, KCREP is just, it's literally the counseling board's accreditation. So anytime you're in a KCREP program, you're covered. You can pretty much go anywhere and be covered. Now, in Louisiana, you have to graduate from a KCREP accredited school. Okay, you have a certain amount of hours to get, you have to, And in Louisiana, we have to have postgraduate. They don't even start counting your supervision hours until you graduate. Okay, now that's a different with Mississippi. In Mississippi, it's a little bit easier to do, which now I'm looking back, maybe I should have went. But in Mississippi, you can, because I lived there in Jackson for a long time. In Mississippi, you don't have to have a K-CREP program. However, now there's stipulations on this. Mississippi's a little difficult in terms of their testing. So you don't have the K-CREP program, but you do still have the hours. They do let you all count some of your practicum and internship hours. You don't have to start your hours once you graduate. So that's a little easier. But y'all have to take the NCE, which is the exam to be licensed. And you also have to take the Mississippi jurisprudence exam. See, we didn't have to take that. So you all actually have 2 tests to take before you can. I'm having a morning this morning. Okay.
All right.
All right.
So,
like
so we're back in. So yeah.
Yeah, you all have to take that jurisprudence exam as well as the NCE. So even though you have less strict qualifications, let's say, you all do have 2 exams to pass. Okay. And when it comes to Louisiana, you need to decide, like, wherever you get licensed, you have to practice in that state. Okay. And if you want to switch to another state, there are also things you have to do for that state. Okay. So just always be mindful of where you choose to go. And what the requirements are. And also, if you don't want to go to school and stay, you don't have to. Like, say some people want to go to a school in Arizona. Okay, Arizona has some of the but requirements don't hold Mississippi or Louisiana. Like you won't be able to practice out here. So just be mindful of the program you choose. And that's why I say if you choose K-CREP, you're going to always be good. Like K-CREP basically puts respect on your program. So wherever you go, if you use K-CREP, you're going to be good regardless. So I would kind of seek out those programs.
Absolutely.
And I did provide you all with a list.
Because I know you are pressed for time, but I do have some really good questions to get to, and I'll get to as many of these as I can, because some of these are deep. So we'll get to as many of them as we're able to get to. But they are all. Oh, I guess I got kicked off my share. Hold on 1 second. But we'll keep going here. All right. So these are all 9th graders, and I'm glad they're thinking about this stuff, not only when it comes to the career, but when it comes to mental health. The first one was Leah Smith. She's one of our volleyball players here. And she's got a couple of questions, but I think this first one is really good because I think this is something to think about when it comes to counselors. She asked, do you ever get emotional helping people with mental issues? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
Oh my goodness, Leah, when I first started, I had to pray and ask God for strength. I kid you not, because I'm already like a sap when it comes to this kind of thing. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and when I first started, like just fresh out the door in substance abuse. Substance abuse is horrible. That's why I say you need to take care of that childhood trauma. 90% of those people with addictions had childhood trauma. So they would be telling me, things they experienced, and they're so graphic. They'll be telling you when I was 7, this happened, that happened. And I don't know, you just learn to put your game face on. You want to be compassionate, but you can't sit there and boo-hoo cry because they're looking at you like, okay, you're supposed to be the professional here. So for the first couple of weeks, I would take that home and just break down and be bawling, you know what I mean? But I hate to say it, after you hear it over and over again, you kind of develop almost a thicker skin to it, you know what I mean? Because it's not so new with hearing it. So yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. You hear stuff like you just can't believe, especially if you are a mother, and you're listening to the way, some people treat their children. It gets hard. Again, that's where self-care comes in. You have to practice self-care, because if you don't, you will find yourself dealing with mental issues like depression and different things like that.
Absolutely. Now, this is a deep question too. She asked, what is your best piece of advice for high schoolers as they move through mental, social, and physical problems?
Well, I'm always pushing self-care. Learn to balance it out. Again, there are some things in life you're not going to be able to change. You know what I mean? Some things you can't change your family. You're going to experience things in this life that's not fair to you, that's not right. but you just deal with it the best way you can. Keep your future in your mind. That's on that sheet. I put some of the tips to keep in mind. Decide what you want to do. You're not too young to start. I love it that y'all are even considering your career options in ninth grade. Okay, knowing that to be a counselor, you have to stay on the up and up. If somebody is bullying you and challenging you to a fight, they may end up with you being expelled. Consider that, because when you become a counselor, they check your record for everything. I've had 3 background checks since I even started this, FBI checks. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind. Be mindful of your grades. When you go to get into these graduate programs, you have to have at least a 3.0 minimum. And that's not even considering the honor societies and all that. You know what I mean? So just be mindful. Keep your head up. Keep your eyes on your future. And don't worry about the foolishness.
Absolutely.
Blinders.
I love this one. This is Trayvon Willis, one of our football players here. And he asked, what made you pursue mental health as a career change?
Because of my path. Everybody in the world is calling me right now. Because of my past, I had my own childhood trauma. And you can be a victim or you can be a survivor. And I chose to go into that field because I can relate to that field. So sometimes you have better success when you can talk to people firsthand, versus just telling you what I read in the book. I have a passion for it. I want to see people get past and get better and live healthy lives. So that's what drove me to it, just because I was experiencing that. I mean, it's not what I want to do. I don't want to be there, but I kind of got pulled in that direction, and I discovered that I liked it.
That's awesome. That's a great segue to this question. This is William Clay. He's a member of our band. And he asked, does being an African-American woman sometimes play a role in people not trusting you despite it being 2023?
Well, it depends on your clientele. Actually, I found it works in my benefit because I'm a chameleon. Like, I'm on, as y'all kids say, I'm on what you're on. So if we're talking like, what's up? That's how we're talking. If we're talking professional talking, you want bougie, we can do bougie, whatever. I find that it works. We need more African-American clinicians because a lot of us, and this is no offense to anybody, it's just the facts. We already are kind of distrustful of mental health people. And then a lot of times we don't want to talk to Caucasians because they may feel they can't relate to what we're going through and different things like that. So Black clinicians are important and women are important. We need the women and we need the men. Some young boys and whatnot do better talking to men. You know what I mean? We need more men, to be honest with you. More Black men. So no, I found that it helps me, honestly.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We said a second ago about the need for bilingual counselors. Like I said, we'll have some first generation Americans that see this later, and I'd like to encourage them to look into this field because, especially if English is not somebody's first language, they're going to need to communicate. You don't want any communication barriers when it comes to dealing with trauma.
Exactly. Even sign language. I know that sounds crazy, but
I forgot all about that. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yes, they need that too. And then let me tell you something too. When you get to tacking on those extra languages and sign language and all that, money. Everything that you can add to your repertoire is going to increase your value.
Yeah, and that's a good point. My sister is actually learning sign language right now at Ole Miss, and it's counting as being bilingual. So that something you can put on a paper, and you can make more per hour, no matter, and that's in any field, but especially in human service field where you're dealing with people. If you can speak more than one language, they literally have to pay you more.
It gives you a step up over everybody else.
Absolutely. I like this one. This is London Jackson. She's a member of our band as well. And she asked, what is the most difficult part of being a professional counselor?
The most difficult part is, well, for me, I can speak for myself. I had to learn to stop looking at their lack of progress or, regression as a personal thing. Because you want so badly as a counselor to see people thrive and to see people improve, you know what I mean? And you may be working, because sometimes like in substance abuse, you work with long time clients and you'll be seeing them do so well, you know what I mean? And you're so proud of them. And then they may just fail and completely go back to square one. So, and then again, in the beginning, that was hard for me because I'm just like, what am I doing wrong? What did I tell them wrong that made them, that me is them, this is their success and they have to want it. So I find that was the hardest part for me. And you have to have a thick skin, y'all. Like if you go into counseling, it's not all peaches and cream. Yeah, sometimes people lashing out on you and it's not your fault. Like you have to be able to separate yourself from that trauma. Sometimes a counselor becomes because you're asking them these difficult questions, you're challenging them on these difficult issues, and sometimes you become, the person that they tend to take it out on. And sometimes, you stick with them, you'll get that breakthrough. You'll break through with that. But you can't be thin-skinned. They tell you something you don't like, and I'm not dealing with them. That's not how it works.
Yeah. I like this one. This is Ashton Garrett. He's one of our football players here. And he asks, you talk about mental health so much. So what happens when you go through your own mental health crisis?
That's why I have a therapist. I'm telling you, I'm serious. Like, I don't see her often, but when I do see her, like if it's going to be a lot, and I'm going to keep saying it, self-care, y'all. Self-care is important. I don't care if you go and get your nails done once a month and your hair done and go to the spa, whatever. You have to find that outlet that balances it. You have to take care of yourself. If you know you're having difficult client, take a day or two off. You have to balance taking care of yourself, because if you don't, you will have a mental health crisis. Take vacation, spend time with your family. When you're off work, you're off work. Cut it off, and, learn to balance those two things. If you don't balance, you'll have a hard time with it.
Absolutely. This is Micaiah Williamson. She's also a member of our volleyball team. And she asked, what is the biggest challenge you face to get where you are?
Sticking through school, y'all. Y'all go while y'all are young. I was in my 40s trying to get through this, and it was hard, okay? And then a lot of my work, because I was in a hybrid program, a lot of it was done online. Listen, if you do online, just be prepared that it's harder. Like you're a lot of that I don't want to say you're teaching yourself, because they do provide you the recorded lessons and all that, but it's a lot of reading in a short amount of time. It's a lot of testing in a short amount of time. So I did it that way, and I was working. I was already working in substance abuse. I went back and got my clinical, but I was already working. So I had that going on, plus all that online, plus being old and have my own kids doing what they're doing, So get out there while you're young. If you can get on campus, it's not as compressed, So that's what made it difficult for me. But keep your foot on the gas, go all the way through it.
All right, I just got one more from the students. And man, this is a good one. This is Jordan Job. He's another one of our football players. And he asked, what would you consider to be the leading causes of mental health issues today?
Media.
That's a
Media,
great point.
social media, news, all those things going around these children and adults too. We're so desensitized because they're putting so much stuff in our face. Like that stuff causes secondhand trauma, whether you realize it or not. Social media causes low self-esteem sometimes if you're prone to that kind of thing. You start comparing yourself to others. Your life is just fine, but you're looking at what somebody else has, not knowing the backstory of what's going on with them. And now you're feeling less than because you're comparing yourself. We're seeing people shot and killed. We're seeing brutality. We're seeing, things in other countries, and you're constantly being flooded with those images and a lack of good images. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, you get a one-sided perspective, especially when your minds are young and impressionable, taking out these things. And I'll tell anybody, protect your mind. This is your mind, and you have one of them. Protect your mind, what goes in it. Like I can't watch anything. They show the videos, and this is not putting police down. They're good police, not bad police, but they show the videos of, certain incidents we've had in the past with police. I don't watch those things. I have sons, and that causes me vicarious trauma, even though it's not my sons. So I just completely avoid them.
Yeah.
So limit how much news you watch. You know what I mean? Just limit those things. Don't even take it in your mind in the first
My
place.
grandmother just turned 94, and she didn't watch any news for the same reason. It's so funny. She has to ask us what's going on.
I'm telling you, it will depress you. If you sit there and just constantly watch, you'll be like, the world is horrible. Oh my God, it's about to blow up any day now. Because they just put it fear tactics,
Yeah.
So just limit what you take into your mind, especially being young people.
Yeah. Well, I was just handed one more, and I think this is a good one too. This is Kelsey Burrell. She asked, when you track mental health data, how important is the data when it comes to doing your work?
I mean, I do look at the data, but I'm hands-on. I deal with what's in front of my face and what's going on. Yeah, we want to keep up with the data so you know what's out there, what the important issues are, who's struggling with the issues, who has this, who has that, you know. But I typically the data I look at is new techniques. But there haven't been any new theories here lately, but you know, the progression made in the field, things like that. That's what I look at. And that's the one thing I want to touch on real quick too, Greg. When you're in school, make sure that you join some of these honor societies. That's why you want to keep your grades up. I'm in Psi and what's called Chi Sigma Iota. All right. Those are both counseling honor societies that you have to have a 3.5 to be in. But they give you so many resources. There's free seminars. They send you free psychology magazines. You know, they keep you up with all the new techniques that are coming out, all the new, you know, I'm taking an EMDR class right now, which teaches you about trauma and unlocking your memories, basically. So you want to join those things. When you get out, you want to join some of those societies. Again, I provided you this paperwork, the APA, the ACA, join some of those things. So many free resources, you know. When you get your license, you have to take continuous education. You don't get to stop.
Yeah.
You have to take 20 hours every year. So these are ways to get that free education. You know what I mean? So you have to continue to learn, never stop. Because you need that stuff, especially like me. I'm doing group therapy. You know how hard it is to keep coming up with new stuff every day?
Wow.
Every day. They're like, we did that already. You have to find something else.
I know we're up against our time, but before we go, tell us about your nonprofit that you're doing with your daughter, which is, you know, doing some incredible work there in the Alexandria community.
Yeah, we have a nonprofit, y'all, called God's Hands Charity. And what we do out here in Ellick, we provide necessities to homeless people, the ones actually living on the streets. So when it gets cold, right now we're working on winter season. We'll be providing coats, hats, sleeping bags, you know, the ones that are actually on the streets. And lately here we've taken on children as well. So we do the back to school events for the children. This year we provided like 90 some odd pairs of Nikes for the kids. And we're getting ready to do coats and hats and gloves and stuff like that. So we kind of just provide necessities for people that don't have them. That's what we do.
And that really, and you know, and that also gives you a resume builder, because
Yeah.
we really try to push the resumes in high school, and that community service is such a big part of that. So
Yeah.
and it's
And
also
so are those honor societies and stuff.
and giving your daughter, who's one of the smartest people I've ever met, a great resume builder as well. And I know y'all are just so talented doing that, doing some great work there. And
Yeah, she just got her master's in social work, Greg.
man, she's smart, dead gum. Now before we go, and I know we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for being with us today, despite our technical difficulties on both ends, because our internet went out for a while as well. But you know, we talk about mental health stigmas, and we just can't stress enough that no matter what race you are, no matter what gender you are, no matter who your parents are, you are going to deal with mental health crisis, big or small, at some point in your life. It's that they say the only things guaranteed are death and taxes. That's true, but also mental health crisis is going to happen. And I think it's important for every kid to know, even if you have no desire to work in this field, because obviously it takes a strong person. You need to be comfortable enough to reach out. You need to be comfortable enough to talk to somebody. There are people willing to help. So even, obviously we want as many people as possible that feel the call to this to look into it because they're needed. But why should these kids really, really know that there are people willing to help and willing to work through them through these crises?
I'll tell you like this. Again, I'll go back into, not going into too much detail, the family secrets and all that. Y'all, listen to me. If you don't hear anything else, don't let anybody tell you that it's not okay to get the help you need. You do not have to deal with that. You may think you're dealing with it. It's fine. I forgot about it. When you get to be an adult and you start wondering why you're doing the things you're doing, you can link it back to that. Childhood trauma will manifest one way or another. Okay. And that's just childhood trauma. Sometimes you don't develop trauma till college, whatever. It may not be trauma. It may just be, there are different things that the clientele I work with now is bipolar, schizophrenic, schizoaffective, those are genetic things. I tell everyone, just like your physical body has ailments, so does the mind. If you have diabetes, you take medication. You have high cholesterol, you take medication. If you have mental issues, you take medication, you get counseling, you get the help you need. It's just another body part, and it's an important one. You know what I mean? That's what end the stigma means. Take care of yourself. You cannot function without your mind. Care how healthy your body is. So do what you need to do to make sure you're okay. You look out for yourself. You know, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Don't be scared. And then therapy is confidential. Nobody has to know you're in therapy but you and your therapist. You know what I mean? So get the help you need, and don't let anybody tell you. You know, so people, y'all young. We got enough gangsters. We got enough. We got enough. You know, people doing whatever. You know, they're not supposed to be doing. We need some doctors, some lawyers. We need some mechanics. We need some professional people in this world. Have y'all seen the shape of this world?
Yeah.
We need y'all to, you know. So if that's in the way, get it out the way. Get it out the way. Do your work and get healthy so you can survive and live a good life.
Yeah, and I also think
you can.
And I also think it's important, and you did hit on it briefly, that no matter where you are in life, no matter what your age is, it's never too late to go after something that you believe in. I won't give away our ages. You are just a tad bit older than me, not by much, but you know, I changed careers at 30.
45.
You said that, not me. I changed careers at 30. You changed careers in your late 30s to start to pursue something you love. So it really is never too late to really chase
Never too late.
Chase what makes you happy. But I know you're up against it, and you got to get ready for your you got to get ready for your session. But thank you so much for joining us. Great great content, just such a great field. You're doing such great work over there in 318. So Kimberly Texada, Alexandria, Louisiana, thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see you.
No problem.
I talk to you soon, buddy.
Bye-bye.